And for us, it's very important. Those two countries are following everything we're doing. Since you were there, they have been asking when you'll be back.
Oh,
So
good.
that's why
I
I
love
think,
being there.
yeah, that's why it would be very good to have a couple of minutes to talk more about it. As Jeff was sharing, they of course want to talk more about how you see the public sector going through Latin America, but also Rosa will probably start some questions for the professionals to go afterwards.
Okay, great. I love that. However you want to start, I'm ready.
Let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Teresa, first I would like to know if you can explain in simple words what are the main difference between a normal client, a private business, and a public sector when we're talking about acquiring technology.
What's the main differences? Well, I will. So do you want me to speak specifically about governments in general versus like educate? They kind of all go together, but let me just talk about I'll say public sector. Excuse me. For me, includes of course education, government, not-for-profits, NGOs. That kind of fits in my portfolio. Excuse me. All of a sudden, my throat got really dry. Excuse me.
Yeah, don't worry.
And then also I have all the technology companies that support them. So if you think about a large system integrator that would support government like a Lockheed Martin or a Northrop Grumman or a Raytheon, or for education, give me a good example in education when you own EdTech.
Desire to learn.
Desire to learn. Those are actually also in our portfolio. But the big difference is governments around the world, of course, have a lot of technology and have had a lot of technology, and they generally go through a very specific procurement process for technology. They're not like a commercial entity who can just go say, I want that, and they'll buy it. I want that, and I'll buy it. They have to go through a procurement process that enables fair and competitive practices to purchase that technology. So for us, not only that, generally a lot of countries you go into will have special regulations like data sovereignty. Like they want to know that their data is for special workloads is in that country. They also sometimes have special circumstances for security and compliance practices. So they'll have a security and compliance regime that you need to comply with. And then last, when it comes to actual purchasing, they sometimes have a specific government procurement vehicle that you have to use in order for them to actually buy. So in the commercial world, in an enterprise commercial world, that I don't want to say that never exists, but mostly no. They just can kind of go and try and move fast. So what we've done at AWS though, we've worked really hard to bring all those commercial best practices into government that our customers use every day with cloud computing to make it as easy as possible and to try the technology without having to make massive procurements before they actually try it out and make sure it works really well. So for us, we have in almost every service, we have a free tier, so a customer can just go on their own and try a free tier. They do have the ability to buy usually so much cloud computing on their credit card just to try. We saw that in the very early days that many of our customers were buying technology on a credit card to just try it out. So once they do all that, then what we have to do, our teams go in, and of course Latin America is run by Jeff, and our teams then go in and we work with governments proactively, and we begin to educate them and work with their policymakers and legislators about cloud computing. We talk to them about, give them case studies and examples of how it's working today and how it's different from kind of what we call the old school model of technology in government, where you bought a whole bunch up front and then prayed that you needed it all. You kind of you hoped and prayed, hey, I'm gonna use all that. But we educate them, then we work with them on their models. Like if they tell us, hey, we have a cloud security or we have a security and compliance regime, we work with them and show them how our cloud technologies meet that framework, or we work with them to do that. Sometimes it's a set of things where we have to document specifically how the service works. We show them the security controls and how those security controls are actually met. And then generally we'll see a government write a procurement for cloud, and then we respond. So there's a bunch of different models, but I would say it's everything from the government creating a cloud first policy, which we will help them with, to having a security and compliance methodology or practice that we can snap into or support. In the US, it's FedRAMP, what's a good one in Latin America?
There's no one that's
There's no one
consistent.
consistent.
Yeah.
That's
They
generally
draft
around the
off of
world.
FedRAMP.
Yeah. So FedRAMP, I'm glad Jeff reminded me of that. So FedRAMP was the first cloud security framework ever around the world. And it was in the US, and now we see a lot of governments around the world that kind of use FedRAMP as a model and a practice for what they do around the world. So then they have a security and compliance regime. Then they create a acquisition model that you can buy off of. And then from that, it is literally about training, education, and culture. It's really about then helping them do all that work that they need to do to actually kind of modernize their environment and take advantage of cloud computing. But that sounds like a lot, because governments do have to go through a lot. But what we then hear from our customers is how fast they move. So they kind of go slow to move fast. So they go through all their steps, and then when they get there, then they really get moving kind of fast. They learn how to use cloud, and then they just begin to create new services and applications. So I hope, hopefully, does that help?
Yeah.
It's in the school of hard. I mean, working it, but we love it, right? I mean, that's kind of our goal as a team, is to go help governments see that there are new models that they can take advantage of to modernize and have a digital country, basically. So that's really our goal. In the beginning of it can be really challenging, but we see that there's real change and that cloud is becoming the new normal around the world. Latin America, most certainly.
For these two countries, to put some examples in, with the government of Chile, we worked with the administration to help trade CapEx for OpEx for budgets. So the way that the Chilean budgeting was originally didn't go ahead and let you have a variable cost for cloud, pay as you go. So now that's solved. So now the different ministries can actually trade their budgets across to use the citizens' money more efficiently. In Argentina, we work with the government to have an announcement that 80% of the workloads in the next 10 years will all be on cloud. And we help them to understand what that means. And then now it's how do they go ahead and modernize the procurement side. And that's really where we bring the global best practices. And that was part of Teresa's visit to both countries, was sharing the global best practices with the ministers as well as presidents on what she's seen on a global plane.
And by the way, I'll just reiterate, I loved my trip to Argentina and Chile both. It was like really amazing. The food, the people, just really seeing what's kind of happening. And
It was the first time?
it's the first time for me for both countries. And it was really fantastic to see just kind of the desire at the country level to be driving digital transformation and change. So there's no lack, I don't think, of desire. And, Argentina and Chile they're different countries, but very relatable to each other. And I also got a sense of their ability and desire that they would work together too, which is, you already do as countries. So I thought that was really nice.
She helped me in the question, but my English is not very good.
My pleasure.
Your English is
Questions
better
everyone.
than my Spanish.
So first, connected to what you just said, you visited Argentina in May, and just after it, there was great devaluation and the country went in recession. So how does the situation in Argentina now impacts the plans of AWS in Argentina?
Well, first of all, we work with so many countries around the world that the economies are up and they're down. That doesn't mean we run away from our customers because the economies are up and down. We believe that technology is transformative to help drive that change. So we want to continue to partner with Argentina. We're still there. The teams are there. Jeff's there on a regular basis. And we believe that, hopefully cloud technologies and our work with Argentina at the university level, at the government level, can help create new jobs, new economic development, and perhaps, hopefully, even set a path for new entrepreneurs in the country, which that's kind of the most interesting thing about cloud. If you look at the startups, the new companies that kind of pop up, they all run on cloud computing, and if you talk to them, they say, I started my company very inexpensively because I used free tiers of AWS, and I didn't have to use all my capital to go buy IT. So I think that AWS can be a game changer, and where we'll start, where we'll continue is also at the education level at the universities to help make sure that we're working with them to get the right skills for technology. But every country goes up and down. So Argentina, I'm sure, will recover.
Okay, thank you.
Teresa, can we really talk about the main digitizing a country, or is more or less digitizing services? I don't know if or digitizing the economy or digitizing services. I mean, it looks a little bit digitizing the economy, like in the case of Latin American countries.
Yeah. Well, we actually like to think big at Amazon.
Okay.
And we believe that you need to think about a digital economy, a digital country. So for
How
us,
far are we from that?
that's Chile. Or
in
just
general, Latin
anywhere
America.
around the world or in Latin America?
No, in Latin America in general.
Well, I think it depends on the country. I think some are further than others. But here's what I'll share with you about Latin America. Chile in particular was very interesting country for me, seeing how the economy worked and was very strong actually. I was like, I didn't know very much about Chile, and I was very inspired to see how the country kind of operates already, and how you had a period in your history where you had a downturn in the economy, and you really turned that around. And it was so obvious within the country, kind of the individuals, the work ethic, the spirit in the country. And I felt Chile had kind of all the key ingredients, being ready to move toward that kind of massive digital footprint. And the thing I got so excited about was understanding that you had in Chile the largest number of telescopes of anywhere in the world, bringing down amazing satellite images from space, everything, the Earth's observation, space observation, but you weren't using technology to capture that information. You didn't have storage, you didn't have the right processing, you weren't really sharing it with researchers, and I had a great opportunity to talk with your president about that, and we said, let's change that, and we are now. We're working together to actually put some programs in place where the team is working to analyze, to stream, analyze and store that data so we can now begin to use it and let researchers use it and take real advantage of it. Because when you think about that, that could be an area of monetization for the country, right? But it was this amazing data that's really hadn't been captured. So when we kind of step back as a team and we said, what do we do to help make a nation a digital nation? What does that mean? And there's a few things. One is you need, starting with the government officials, you do need an economy that creates the right environment for entrepreneurship and innovation. So that's kind of one piece. So you've got to make sure you have the right policies that create an environment for businesses, for young startups. You can't have so many regulations around things that it doesn't create a sense of the ability to do things, because when you over-regulate, there's a lot of money involved, like it costs a lot for young companies. So if you think about a government, what do? They set the right tone, the regulations, the environment for startups, for businesses. So they foster kind of that spirit, right? The second thing they taxes, all those things, absolutely. That all comes into play. So you have to look at what makes someone want to be an inventor and create something in a country. And all those things come into play. Again, the right tax situation, the right business environment, the ability to access. So then the second piece of that is training and education that you have created at the university level, high school level. You have created the right curriculum and programs that allow teaching new skills and bringing technology in, but also not just technology, but teaching these students how they think differently and how they absorb these skills. So that's the second piece. So government practices and policies. 2, educational environment that shapes up. And then 3, the models in place that encourage, again, individuals to invest in the country. So venture capital, private equity. And that's kind of back to the tax laws, the business regulations that tell somebody, I want to take my money and invest in these companies. And that can also be in a way that not just government, but businesses can create innovation centers. They can fund new businesses out of their own business. So it's kind of that spirit. And then the last piece, I would say, which is a super important piece, is that then the government has to walk the walk, just not talk the talk. So, and what I mean by that is they then themselves have to begin to do digital innovation at the government level, provide citizens the same digital capabilities that you expect on this phone. So governments then have to say, I'm going to create citizen services efforts that really promote innovation. And that's where we, I think, really begin to help at that level, say, now, let's create the right tools and technologies. So then once they do it, you see, like you'll see enterprises, small business people say, well, my government's doing this. Like, it creates a model. And then I've also seen in places like in Bahrain, who is doing a whole model for digital innovation for their country. They're actually paying for their citizens to get certified on AWS. They literally, if a citizen gets AWS certified, they pay 100% of that certification. And they're also paying for small businesses to move to the cloud. And the reason they're doing that is they want them to have a global footprint for their economy, not just local. So those are kind of the key elements, I think, that you have to have. Now, where we come in and we actually do help in every aspect of doing that with a country, but it's got to start, of course, at the top. You got to see kind of that leadership driving that. Hopefully, is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Question on
Teresa? Sí.
So let me just put one more connected with this topic. That when AWS will make a decision about between Chile, Argentina, or Colombia for a new data center?
Oh, well, we don't have any specific time yet that we will, but we will continue to evaluate. And in the fullness of time, we're going to have so many regions in Latin America. I mean, I think we'll have multiples, and I think we'll have different types of regions. Because if you look at, as an example, Chile, which again I learned a lot about. I went to Argentina, loved it, loved the tango, by the way, which I never seen. I was blown away by the tango. I still have my tango books. But I did not know that Chile had so many earthquakes. So of course, when we would go into a country like Chile, that's not impossible. But we have to evaluate, where do we go that our data centers would not be disrupted through the seismic activity that takes place. Again, not impossible, but sometimes you have infrastructure challenges as you go into countries. In Latin America, very beautiful across the board, but there's some areas that we just, we have to work to figure out how would we build in those countries and how we do it in the right way, and how would we work to create a partnership between Argentina, Chile, and Colombia even. Like, I see some countries today that actually work together for regional backup. They'll use their, because the countries are, small,
Yeah.
so they use each other. So still to be determined, and we don't have a time frame yet, I'm sorry.
Teresa, but about this question, how much impact can have the installation of a data center in a country like Chile or like Argentina or in the region? How much impact it could be?
How much impact?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
when we go in with the region, what's the economic impact?
Because there's a lot of expectation in our countries,
right.
But what is the real impact in the
Well, so here's what we do when we go into a country, and I don't want to give you, I can't tell you for your specific country what that would be, because here's what we generally do. We go and do an economic impact study with you in that country. And that's generally one of the steps that we take, so we can share that with the country, like here's what it is. But let me kind of give you this. When we go into countries, I will tell you, we create thousands of jobs. We pull our partner community in when we come into a country. So it's not only kind of us that shows up, we do pull in a partner community with us. We help create kind of a unique environment around us where businesses kind of flourish and grow where we are, because we also bring in additional people. We hire workers, of course, that we build our regions, and then we hire local workers, which does help the local economy, because wherever we go, we try to hire locally. Now, we do that anyway as we build teams. So having a region in a country does or does not preclude us from hiring. And I'll give you, like, as an example, we don't have a region in Israel, but we have hundreds of people there already, as an example. And they use cloud. They're a prolific user of the cloud because they are amazing innovators. If you ever go to Tel Aviv University, it's like Silicon Valley. They're starting companies and they're innovators, but us not having a cloud there has not stopped them from using it or us growing our business there, as an example. And I see the opportunity for us to continue to grow our businesses across Latin America.
¿Estamos listos?
Yes, to